Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of No Fly Zone. I'm your special guest host, A to the Ron. That's right, Big A-aron is here for you today, and we're talking about some great stuff. But before we get started, let me introduce you our creators of the show and, of course, the other hosts. He is the man with the plan and all great, amazing headbands. That's right, it's Bret the Vet. Hey, Bret. And of course, we have our other host. She's smart. She is our certified research-ologist, and she doesn't just arrest people with her handcuffs. That's right. It's K-Cloud. Hey, guys.
Wink with both eyes.
How are you doing, A-aron?
That's a good town. I'm doing good, guys. Welcome back. I'm very excited about our show tonight. For you guys out there, we're doing the Bermuda Triangle, one of my top favorite conspiracy, science, kind of stuff. I'm really enjoying about that. But before we get started, Bret, I know you've got some news from us. There are more countries out there listening to us. What do you got for us today?
Yeah, we picked up some more listeners around the world. Since the last time that we've done this, we have picked up Germany, Malaysia, and Hungary. Ooh. On top of that, we're also being listened to in Ukraine in a war zone. So this is that's crazy. Like that's insane to me.
Yeah, I salute all you Ukrainians out there. Sorry for, Russia.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't remember, there is still a war happening in Ukraine. I feel like that fell off the news really fast. So
yeah, I think it's because they're winning.
Fuck? Yeah, I know it's not cool anymore.
We also had some really good feedback on our last episode. The people are saying they want more of that. The light fun shows.
Weird. Yeah, I cannot believe you guys want to listen to us.
We still want to do weird shit. So.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely great. That was a fun show. I'm really excited.
It's cool. No big deal. It's fine. I'll just spend weeks and weeks planning super detailed research and outlines, and then you guys will love the fucking ad-lib episode. Great. Love that.
Well, you are a certified research-ologist, so I don't know if that's a title, but it's your title now.
I'll take it. I will accept it.
All right. So, well, if you guys are... Oh, no, go ahead, Bret.
One last thing. We've gotten some feedback. And this has been going on, but there's been some disappointment in your performance as a guest. So it's time for a change. You're still in the spotlight, so it's time to promote you as a full-time host on the No Fly Zone podcast. If you accept.
I totally accept that offer, boys and girls. I love that. Thank you so much.
This glowing neon ring.
I can't be more excited right now. You have no idea. I'm totally down to be a part of this.
That was our beachside proposal to A-aron. And thank you for saying yes and not embarrassing us. God.
No. That's excellent. Thank you, guys. I'm very excited to be a part of it.
I don't want to look bad from Malaysia.
Yeah, no, I'm Ukraine, man. They need something to root for right now. So thank you for giving that to them.
Well, and the German heritage out there, they're all thanking you right now as well.
Excellent. I don't know what I don't know.
Yay.
So Bermuda Triangle. I love it. Let's go, A-aron.
Yes. Okay.
Our new and official host, A-aron.
All right.
Is taking this one away.
All right. So I'm going to be your host, guys. And just in case you don't know, when I did first start this show, they gave me a punch card. After 5 guest hosts, or guest appearances, you get to host for free. So I'm taking over the show, guys. Hopefully that is okay with everybody out there. But yeah, very, very exciting. All right. So real quick, Bermuda Triangle, one of my favorite conspiracies out there, one of the top 10 that I have out there, both in science and in conspiracy. If you don't know what the Bermuda Triangle is, I'll break it down for you real quick. Basically, it's also known as the Devil's Triangle. It's about 500,000 square miles of just ocean off the coast of Florida. There's 3 points that kind of bind it: Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Hence, if you draw that on a map, it is a triangle. That's right, boys and girls. So a lot of crazy shit's happened in there, a lot of disappearances, a lot of things, shipwrecks. It's kind of started all kinds of crazy stuff, which is why we're talking about it tonight. Real quick, though, just to give you an idea on the legend as well, Christopher Columbus was one of the first. I don't know if you guys really know a lot about him, but he saw some meteors from the sky and some strange light, and it kind of started this whole thing down the passway. And then you've got someone like William Shakespeare, who wrote The Tempest. Excellent, by the way, but it's totally claimed based on a real life Bermuda shipwreck. There's just a lot of patterns that have allegedly kind of formed, a lot of vessels, things like that. And we're going to get into a couple of those big stories tonight. One in particular is my personal favorite. It happened in 1945, and that's known as Flight 19. So we'll get to that here shortly. Got a little graveyard action too out there if you guys really want to get into it. It's home of some of the deepest underwater trenches. There's been tons and tons of wrecks. from Bermuda to Miami to just out in the triangle itself. Coast Guard considers it a pretty hazardous area as well. What do you guys think before we get started? Just Bermuda Triangle, lots of crazy stuff.
I'm just thinking about memories from when I was young about like missing time. Like that always fascinated me. Like stories about people going to like, a flight that should take an hour going to the coast of Florida and they're doing it in 15 minutes and they can't account for the time that was lost. Those missing time stories kind of fascinate me.
That's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and the more that I did research on this, of course, the more deeply embedded I became in science. And saying there's logical explanations for all of this, but that's just me, the skeptic.
Well, we will definitely get to that later on down the road. For those of you out there, we're going to give you a couple of stories. You can guys kind of make your own judgments, but we're going to get into those stories. We're going to touch base on some conspiracies, and then we're going to get into cloud zones where it's all about the research, all about the science. So,
and we are not experts. This is just our opinion and our thoughts on it. We are just... No.
Excuse me, I Wikipedia'd for like 2 hours. I'm a fucking expert now. That's how
that should be a disclaimer. Not experts, just opinionated. That's what we are.
Right, no shit. So, very opinionated. And,
so just expert or subject matter expert?
Are you a subject matter expert on like the Puerto Rico Trench and electronic fog, Brett? Okay, then no, definitely not a subject matter expert.
Oh, I love that. That is absolutely hilarious. All right. So we're going to get into two big stories tonight. One of them is a very famous story called Flight 19. The other one is about a very famous Navy ship called the USS Cyclops. So KC Clouds, if you want to break it down, why don't you take Flight 19
Absolutely.
And give us a little history lesson?
Absolutely. So I did like what you said, though, get into the cloud zone. I'm going to call it that. When we get to the science, I'm going to call it the cloud zone. All right. So we're starting off on the 5th of December, 1945 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. At about 2:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it was a warm day with billowing clouds soaring overhead and a current of a gusting southwest trade wind. The temperature was 67 degrees. Are you asleep yet? The general weather conditions were considered average for training flights of this nature, except with light showers. You should be asleep by now. That was my weatherman voice. But was it a normal day? Flight 19 is mistakenly called the Lost Patrol. It was not a patrol flight. It was a training flight. It was supposed to be a routine navigation exercise and mock bombing run. A squadron of 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers carrying 14 men were to fly to the Hen and Chicken Shoals in the Bahamas to practice dropping their torpedoes and then return to Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station. This was supposed to be their last practice before graduation, and they had done this many times before. Flight 19 completed their assigned exercise, and on the way back, about 90 minutes after takeoff, the squadron commander, Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor, reported that he was lost. On the first flight, so there's 2 different flights they do this day, right? So on the first flight, everything went according to plan, as they dropped their practice bombs without incident. As the group begins to turn north for the second flight, trouble begins. At around 3:45 p.m., Fort Lauderdale's Lauderdale's
words
light tower. Bleh, bleh. They received a message from Taylor, who reportedly sounded confused and worried. "Can't see land," said Taylor. "Looks like we got off track." "Where do you stand?" the tower replied. And then there were a few moments of silence. Tower personnel peeked outside on a clear day in the direction the planes were supposed to be operating, but there was no sign of them showing up. "We cannot confirm where we are," the aviation leader announced. He repeated the words, "cannot see land." Contact was lost at this time for about 10 minutes, but when it returned, it wasn't the voice of the flight leader that appeared. "We couldn't find the west. Everything is wrong. We can't be sure of any direction. Everything looks strange, even the ocean," the voice reported. There was another delay, and then tower personnel learned from the transmission that the flight leader had passed his orders to another pilot for unknown reasons. After 20 minutes of silence, a new leader's voice was sent to the tower, but his voice trembled, almost hysterical. "We didn't know where we were. Everyone couldn't see anything. We thought we might be about 225 miles northeast of the base." For a moment, the pilots babbled on incoherently before uttering the last words ever heard of Flight 19. "It looks like we entered white waters. We are truly lost." Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, really.
I was just imagining being the, like, tower personnel and hearing those really creepy messages, like everything looks wrong, even the ocean. Like, it sounds like a sci-fi movie. So the squadron's flight plan was scheduled to take them due east from Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale for 141 miles, north for 73 miles, and then back over a final 140-mile leg to complete the exercise. Flight 19's location was given as 75 miles northeast of Cocoa, Florida. At that time, the planes had slightly more than 1 hour of fuel supply. They may actually have been as much as 200 miles out at sea. The last transmission from Flight 19 took place at exactly 1904, which is 7:04 p.m., when Lieutenant Cox was on air communicating with Flight 19 until their signal got weaker and weaker. Then they were gone. The pilot's ultimate fate was never determined, nor was the fate of 13 other men sent out to search for their lost colleagues. Within minutes of learning of the squadron's predicament, 2 PBM Mariner flying boats were dispatched from NAS Banana River in Melbourne, Florida, which is now Patrick Air Force Base, carrying rescue equipment. Less than a half hour after takeoff, approximately 7:27 p.m., one of the PBMs, Trainer 49, radioed the tower that they were nearing Flight 19's last assumed position. The rescue plane, with a crew of 13 men, was then never heard from again. Theories abound on this loss. It is known that the SS Gaines Mills reported seeing an explosion at sea off New Smyrna Beach at 7:50 p.m. and what appeared to be an airplane falling. This ship also observed a widespread oil slick while it fruitlessly searched for survivors. The weather was becoming stormy by the end of the incident. This PBM-5 Mariner, Trainer 49 flying boat, was lost with 13 men during the rescue mission, and this would start one of the largest air and sea searches in history.
Wow. I mean, that story has always captivated me. I saw it on Unsolved Mysteries when I was a kid. Just the fact that you have these highly trained pilots out there really just losing it. I mean, just extraordinary.
So something that's weird
Twilight
to me
Zone
is the I'm not in the Air Force or know anything about planes really, besides that it seems kind of weird that the transmission or the flight leader status was passed on 3 times total during these transmissions. That was something that always kind of creeped me out a little. It's like, well, what was happening? Because obviously we only have one guy who is graduated, quote unquote. He's like their supervisor. He's leading these trainees essentially out on this bombing run. He becomes lost to the point where he passes on air orders to what would have been a trainee, someone else. And that person then passes on transmission to another plane.
Right.
Really strange shit to me. And there's no explanation of why that happens. I
can't agree with you more on that. And Bret, I know you're former military. I know you were Army, obviously not Air Force, but standard practices like this, do they send out, like I said, graduates in situations with just these single leaders? What do you think would really cause that? I mean, you were a military guy.
I mean, like in training and stuff, I mean, you'll have trainers or you'll have drill sergeants, and there's usually, like 1 to 2 drill sergeants per platoon. I mean, so there's supervision.
Well, you were a leader in one of yours, correct? Or some sort of leader, right?
Yeah. I become a squad leader.
What would cause you to kick that over, like something going on, to have somebody else who's not the leader report back in?
I'm dead or incapacitated and can't fulfill my duties, and then you have succession of command. So the next one in charge has to assume that role. And then the next person goes down, then the next person assumes that role. So same thing with like room clearing. You're going through fatal funnel, you're coming through the door, the first guy goes down, the next guy takes over that role, of where he was supposed to go, and everybody just adjusts to it. So you got to keep moving, in that high stress, high tension situation, where everybody knows their job and the job above you in case you got to assume that role.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. I mean, again, not a military person. I know you guys have done that stuff, but just seems a bit weird. I'm right there with you, Clouds.
If these guys weren't trainees.
But let's say that the flight leaders, radio equipment fully stopped working and he had no way to communicate except like, hey, my radio's down, you guys talk to base. Or, let's say that his plane went down first, ran out of fuel first, and then the next one up had to like do something. I don't know. It's a weird situation. Just
based on those radio transmissions that crossed my mind, again, I'm sure this has been hypothesized to the umpteenth degree in the past, but
of course,
if, say, your Lieutenant Colonel Taylor, the guy in charge, was having some kind of medical emergency or experiencing hypoxia or something like that, based on like a failure of a SEAL losing cabin pressure. Something happened that made him confused, disoriented. The other planes are going to be following him because they're trainees and they're not going to ask questions. So it's possible that he became lost and got everybody else lost. And then once it was recognized that he was having some kind of medical emergency or he was no longer physically capable of continuing, it was probably way too late to correct whatever happened at this point.
When I hear that, I think it is a succession of command kind of thing. Like, hey, the leader's down, either his radio or equipment's not working or something did happen to him. And so then the next guy that got on the radio, it said that he was, pretty calm, just communicating. So there, to me, is a guy that took that leadership role or volunteered for it. Whereas the other person that was frantic, that was someone that was they were out of their element, being forced to do something that they, didn't want to do. And so you kind of see like the comfort levels go on those radio calls.
Absolutely. And I'm just imagining like in law enforcement, for example, I'm not like this, but most people are like this, where the thought of asking a question in a situation where you're quote unquote following the leader would not even cross most guys' minds. Newbies? Even if it seemed, this is a little weird, especially newbies. Oh my God, you're not going to be the person to step up and say, hey, Sarge, are we lost? Oh my God, could you imagine? No. So for example, you have a sergeant leading, patrol officers somewhere. Nobody's going to ask, where are we going or what are we doing? They're just going to go.
They know what they're doing.
Right.
Literally, though, if a sergeant were to walk in and say, come with me.
Oh, sarcasm. That was absolutely sarcasm.
I know. But
okay.
I'm the rebel because I am the question asker. I'm the asshole who's always like asking questions. That's why the word insubordination gets thrown out a lot, because I actually ask the fucking question. But I know most guys that I work with even would not ask. Well, so in a situation like this.
Could you imagine what these undergraduates, I guess I could call them, are going through at this point? I mean, whatever the reason may be, we can speculate as much as we want there.
Man. They'd be
You've
panicking.
got these handful of guys in these highly advanced planes of the time that are, like I said, imagine what they're going through. This could be incredibly fearful, incredibly scary. Mistakes happen when you make those kind of things. So, yeah.
Especially in a situation where you're literally out at sea with only navigation equipment to guide you where you are. And you have no landmarks.
Some basic ass 1945 navigation equipment. I mean,
but that's where you just use cardinal direction, because they took off at 2:10 in the afternoon, so it's not like noon where the sun's dead center in the sky. Like, well, I don't, what time of year was it again? It was.
Well, I know it was 1945. I think it was
2:10 in the afternoon.
December.
So okay. Well, that's a shorter. So I mean, the sun's even farther up in the sky. So I mean, you should be able to figure out where west is. If you know where west is, then you can kind of, at least for me, coming from
if these little recruits didn't even know anything was wrong until way too late, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they didn't, they're following the leader. At what point did they recognize something was wrong?
And if they're already 200 miles out and don't have the fuel, or who knows,
And that brings us to this whole thing, guys, out there in podcast world. These are stories you guys need to look at. I mean, we can voice our opinions, but at the end of the day, question this, question everything. Brett's always been that kind of guy that questions everything, and that is what we should do. So, like you said earlier, this incident drew out one of the largest air and sea searches in history in non-wartime. Cloud, you want to keep going?
Absolutely.
All right.
The search involved hundreds of ships and planes. The Navy alone ordered 248 planes into the air, while 18 surface craft, numerous merchant ships, and other searchers also joined in. At that time, it was the biggest rescue effort of peacetime ever. Search and rescue crews covered more than 200,000 square miles of the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. While on land, they also combed Florida's interior in the hopes of solving the puzzle of what became known as Flight 19. Combined units joined in the search as authorities pushed efforts to locate the missing planes. Scouring practically every mile of open water off the coast were 6 planes from the 3rd Air Force, 120 planes from the Navy Air Advanced Training Command, several aircraft from Air Transport Command, the Boca Raton Army Airfield, the Coast Guard, the RAF, and the SAO. I mean, everyone was out looking for these planes. Navy and Coast Guard service craft were out there. On it goes. The list just goes on. So, Lieutenant Dave White of Hillsborough Beach, who was a senior flight instructor at NASFL, remembers that fateful day as he was playing bridge when he heard a knock on the door of his friend's house. It was the duty officer, and he said all flight instructors were due at the hangar at 5 a.m. because 5 planes were missing.
Man.
For the next 3 days, White, His assistant instructor and 20 of his students flew up and down the Florida coast at low altitudes. They couldn't find a single trace of the airmen or the wreckage.
Wow.
Today, he's convinced, the planes rammed into rough seas.
Nice.
He's convicted. He's been convicted of murdering them all somehow from his bridge playing parlor.
Murder.
He thinks that they rammed into rough seas at about 60 miles per hour, God damn it, I can't talk.
You got this.
With me.
You're good.
East of
We
Daytona
believe in you.
Beach. Don't believe in me. God, that's a horrible mistake. Who would do that?
Did it all my life.
I don't think anybody got out of their planes at all. I don't think anybody survived. He likened hitting the ocean at high speed to hitting a brick wall. White remains mystified. As he's mentioned, the leader was an experienced combat pilot. These were reliable planes in good condition, and it was a routine training mission. As we know in law enforcement, you never say the word routine, ever. We were alerted to look around the islands and to keep searching the water for debris. They just vanished. We had hundreds of planes out looking, and we searched over land and water for days, and nobody ever found the body or any trace of a single bit of debris.
See, and this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is the Bermuda Triangle. People want to put science on it, but there's a lot of unexplained action here. Then something that really drew a lot of attention out there to the world. Very interesting.
200,000 square miles and nothing.
Yeah,
That is
like I
much
said,
larger than the Bermuda Triangle itself. That is a huge area.
well,
Like
the oil slick and the plane explosion, I can go on the science side. I can go on more Cloud's path with this one and say, yeah, of course, you saw it explode. You saw an oil trick. Okay, maybe that plane went down. Why? Again, Bermuda Triangle, man. Like, this shit's crazy out there. Why would a nice plane filled with 13 people go down right when they're looking for 5 more that disappear?
Immediately after.
Yeah.
Like,
So that is one of the stranger things about this to me, is that not only did these guys go missing, which I could easily rationalize, like I said, I'm leaning towards some kind of medical emergency, possibly having to do with high altitude hypoxia on the behalf of the squadron leader, who was the instructor over trainees, which minimizes the chance of them asking a question to like 0%. That I can understand, but the search plane going missing as well, wild shit.
Brett, go ahead.
So for those of us that don't watch Grey's Anatomy, what is this hypoxia you speak?
Okay, I'm just going to dumb it down. Lack of oxygen to the brain.
Right.
That's essentially what that is. And it can occur at high altitudes if there's, for example, a leak in cabin, like, you know how the cabin pressure is kept at a certain pressure. Me and my science here. In like an airplane. If there were a slow leak that would slowly like let out the air and you were subject to higher altitudes where the air is thinner, you probably wouldn't notice. And in fact, people who have experienced the rapid onset hypoxia at high altitudes don't recognize it's happening, and they feel self-reported. I watched some tests on this actually, that nothing is wrong, that they are operating at full mental capacity, that they are still capable of making decisions. They don't feel like anything's happening to them. And yet later on, when they've shown footage of themselves and they thought they were speaking in full sentences and they're like babbling, or they're unable to perform a simple fine motor skill like putting something together that they thought they were doing just great at. You know what I mean? So they did not recognize.
It's a slow burn.
Yeah.
And
So for you stoners out there, it's when you get really high and then you think that you're doing something right,
Yes.
and you realize that you're not.
Right. Or when you
Without
try to
the
put your
munchies,
key in
by
the
the way.
door when you're drunk and you think, man, that hole should be right here, and you can't get it quite in the hole. You know what I'm saying?
So I have a theory to
Excellent.
add this now with that.
What is your theory,
this
Mr. Brett?
This is combining like 3 different things that we've like talked about or thought about this, but so we're talking about the leader leading. Everybody's going to follow, no questions asked, because it's the leader, right? Let's say he does have a cabin pressure leak, like you say. He has suffered from the hypoxia. The less oxygen coming in because the air's thinner. Let's say high magnetism's throwing off their gauges, so he's not sure of his altitude. They keep creeping up. It starts getting stronger and stronger, and then you can pass out from lack of oxygen.
Correct.
So leader passes out, crashes, or the next person has to take over on the radio because he passes out. Something happens to that one, and then you get the other guy panicking because he doesn't know what to do. And I mean, that doesn't explain why no wreckage or anything was to be found. But I mean, that brings the succession thing. That brings the medical emergency. That brings a couple things all together.
Right. And you would also think that the trainees would have said something on the radio if their leader had just either crashed or passed out. But I believe that there were 2 people to a plane. Is that correct?
Usually pilot, co-pilot. One's like the bomber and one's the pilot.
I
On
believe
these
they were.
planes, I'm not exactly sure. I think on these planes, these are single pilot planes, if I'm not mistaken.
Hold on, now I have to go back
Well,
and
it
do
was
some
5
checks
planes,
here.
13 people though.
Right.
No,
So
13 people was the rescue mission. There was 13 people on the
Okay.
rescue plane. I think these were individuals. If I'm not mistaken,
14
these planes
men.
are. Oh, okay.
There's 14
Nope.
minutes.
Then you guys are
14 men,
right.
5 planes.
Just tell me to
So it
shut
would
the
have
hell
to
up.
be
You
2
got
to
it.
3 people per plane.
Okay.
So surely, if somebody was experiencing a medical emergency that was recognized, although if one person in the squadron leader's plane was experiencing that, all 2 or 3 of them would have also experienced that. So you would think that would be
It
the
could've
first thing
been-
to come out on a
It could have been
transmission.
three different people on the same plane that were on the radio for that one.
It could have been.
You know, going back.
Yeah.
Very true.
And at least
Pilot, co-pilot,
2 of
trainer,
those are trainees, and they have no idea what they're doing. And I think it's important, again, to note that these are trainees with their instructor. And again, just harkening back to my time in police academy, my God, was it just number one on your list to not piss off your instructor or even be known by name? Like, holy crap. Like, you have no idea the psychological pressure that instructors put on recruits. Like, it's your whole life and career is in their hands, and they can make you do anything, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well,
Another reason I did not join the military, right there, boys and girls.
Yeah.
I mean, and like you said, Casey, it's easy to kind of explain away that first flight, from blind leading the blind kind of thing. What scares me more is the second rescue flight. You'd have to think that they know what they're doing because they're going on a rescue, that they disappear and we don't know why. Like that to me is even more scary. Like that's weird.
So
Super
my
weird
science
too. That's
people
glazed
here,
over.
so my science people here are actually questioning that there's more to do this than just science.
No, it's science.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
It's 1945.
Now, you guys know me all too well because I tell this every episode. Aliens, baby. All right. As you know, with planes and stuff nowadays, obviously we have GPS. Back in the day, they had compasses. Bret talked about how being able to look, know which direction for west and stuff like that. So the skeptic out there is obviously you guys are on the page that it could be something very scientifical, very hypoxy, mechanical failure, things like that. I, however, am still with aliens.
I mean, we can't prove it's not aliens.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Aliens. All right. So Flight 19, obviously a crazy story. Podcasters out there, if you want to do a little more research, check it out. There's lots of information on that and, make your own call. So we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the Navy stuff. We're going to do into a ship as well this time. So instead of planes, let's talk about boats, or in particular, a single boat known as the USS Cyclops. Bret, my military man, you want to take it?
I got you, man.
Excellent.
So the USS Cyclops, how could the biggest ship in the U.S. Navy vanish without a trace? This was the question on many people's minds in March of 1918, when an enormous collier, the USS Cyclops, disappeared on a voyage between the West Indies to Baltimore. A century on, it's no closer to being answered. The Cyclops was nearly 550 feet long, with a crew of 306 people, and around 11,000 tons of manganese aboard. She had been sailing successfully since 1910, traveling between the Baltic Sea, the Caribbean, and Mexico, and assisting with moving coal around the world and helping refugees. But in 1917, when America entered World War I, that's basically the end of the war for the history buffs, Cyclops became a key naval asset, transporting troops and coal to fuel other ships all over the world. In March of 1918, the ship was given a new cargo, tons and tons of dense manganese ore used in steelmaking. The ship left Brazil loaded up with the brittle metal, then voyaged to Barbados to resupply for the long journey home to Baltimore. The last known message from the ship said simply, "Weather fair, all well." But on the 9-day journey, something went awry, and no one from the ship was ever seen or heard again. And spooky.
I'm telling you.
Ghosts.
That's where you got to do your aliens.
Ocean space ghosts.
Yeah, aliens. I'm just going to say that like 50 times this episode. Aliens.
In a feature published a couple of years after the ship's disappearance, Santa Fe magazine described the strangeness of the disappearance. Usually, a wooden bucket or cork life preserver identified as belonging to a lost ship is picked up after a wreck, but not so with the Cyclops, they reported. She just disappeared as though some gigantic monster of the sea had grabbed her, men and all, and sent her to the depths of the ocean. And the suddenness of her destruction is amplified by the absence of any wireless calls for help being picked up by any ship along the route. And this is also a heavy trade route. It's not like people avoid Bermuda Triangle. It's a highly traffic trade.
They can't.
Yeah, no, very traffic.
Can't avoid it. So I want to say that for our listeners.
No, that's good.
Throughout the decades, there have been a flurry of sometimes sensational theories about the ship's disappearance, as one among more than 100 ships and planes that have mysteriously disappeared in the so-called Bermuda Triangle. Was the ship eaten by some beast of the deep, carried off as evidence by UFOs, or simply succumbed by a storm? At the time, people wondered whether the ship and crew had been the victim of a German submarine. It was barely a year into the war, and the Cyclops would have made a strategic target. Yet nothing materialized, and as time went on, it became less and less likely that German crafts had been in that area at all. Others have pointed fingers at the captain, George Worley. Months earlier, some members of the crew claimed Worley was drunk, unstable to steer the ship. There were even reports of a minor mutiny staged on board the ship. Trouble in paradise, y'all. The Navy defended Worley from these charges, and he returned to his command with apparently little fanfare. The U.S. Navy says in its official statement about the Cyclops, the disappearance of this ship has been one of the most baffling mysteries in the annals of the Navy. All attempts to locate her have proved unsuccessful. But some still cling to investigations, particularly those with personal connections to the ship. Marvin Barash is the descendant of one of the firefighters aboard the ship. He has spent more than a decade researching its history, painstakingly gathering Navy records, ship logs, and any ephemera that might come in useful, including a blackened bag of manganese ore. The whole existence of the ship has been swept under a rug, he told the Baltimore Sun. It wasn't like it was lost in a glorious battle. It just kind of fell off the face of the earth. Barash had his own suspicions about what happened to this lost Colossus. A series of mechanical failures, a crew unused to the new heavy cargo, and a final great rolling wave that tipped the ship and her passengers into the ocean forever. All this, he thinks, may have coincided with the ship passing over the Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean, where she would be near irretrievable. Despite his misgivings, Barash retains some hope that the ship will be discovered, especially as undersea exploration technology improves. There are fewer and fewer lost shipwrecks every year. With high-tech devices spotting vessels believed to be gone for good, the Cyclops may well be next on the list. I just want her to be found, Barash said. I want the 309 to be at rest, as well as the families. It's something everybody needs, some resolution.
Wow. So you're talking a massive ship, a ton of cargo, a ton of people, poof, like magic.
And saying they're good.
Yeah. And they were, and they were like, yeah, we're good. But Clouds has this like doubt look on her face. Like, go ahead, Clouds. What you got? I know you want to put something
biggest ship in the U.S. Navy. Just fucking wild. So one of the interesting things that I found while reading about this is that there's no evidence whatsoever this ship was actually lost in the Bermuda Triangle. Although it is none. It could have been lost anywhere between, where is it? Barbados and Baltimore. Not necessarily in the Bermuda Triangle. So
this is Roaring Twenties clickbait.
Yeah. And it stuck hard.
Great reference.
One of the most famous cases of disappearance. So the most famous ship to disappear, obviously, because of the sheer size of it. Like the newspaper article, the Santa Fe newspaper said, usually you're going to find a life preserver, a cork, a piece of wreckage, something to indicate that the ship is gone. You know, it wrecked or whatnot. It sunk. Nothing here at all.
It's almost like that manganese went over one giant magnet and just went zoop,
that's what I was thinking.
You're right.
So let's look at their cargo.
I'm being sarcastic.
No, you might have some truth to that. Obviously, in the trench. I mean, we'll get into some more conspiracies of what could be in that trench here down the road. But let's look at that cargo, that manganese cargo. I mean, was it worth a lot of money? Just out of curiosity, maybe they just stop somewhere, and I don't know, just kind of throwing it out there.
It's talking about them being overloaded. I mean, would that make them? I'm guessing that would make them less stable if they're being greedy, right?
Right.
As far as
I
water
have so
displacement?
many
Like,
questions. Was this a steam powered vessel? I'm assuming it was because ships
oh yeah, this
at
is
the time were steam powered.
yeah,
Manganese dust and manganese powder, as it turns out, highly flammable.
flammable.
Highly.
So,
You know what else it is? It's probably used for fuel for alien ships as well. So
I
you
knew
never
I
know.
was
Maybe
waiting
they
for
just
that. Absolutely. So one of the things proponents of the Bermuda Triangle theory point to the lack of a distress call as evidence of a paranormal end for this ship. But the truth is that wireless communications in 1918 were unreliable, and it would not have been unusual for a rapidly sinking vessel to not have had a chance to send a successful distress call before going under. So, obviously, an explosion, such as igniting manganese ore, would have been a rapid sinking for that ship, and that could have destroyed. It could have destroyed equipment, or it could have caused a shockwave or disorientation effect to the crew. That even in the seconds they did have, they probably wouldn't have thought, "Let me send a radio signal."
You're saying that they wouldn't have time because this thing's going off like a crack house on Sycamore Street, like.
damn, throws it out there. But yes, that's exactly what I think she's going at. That was really good. Well, I mean, we can, again, I'll step away from my alien stuff here, but the manganese is highly magnetic as well. So, I mean, possibly, the trench is big. Maybe, there's a lot of manganese ore just within the ocean floors that we know of in those areas as well. So there's a lot of possibilities that pirates would say that maybe it was the sea monster. What do they call that?
What?
Is it Pirates of the Caribbean? No, the one that they call out. The big,
Kraken.
And the Kraken. Yes, it could have been the Kraken.
Could have been Cthulhu.
That's what it could have been Cthulhu.
The deep ones, I'm just saying.
I mean, what if that's something that, that a monster is attracted to?
Well, let me throw a statistic out for you guys. What is it, like 20% or something like that of the oceans have been explored? I mean, there's a lot of unknown factors in our oceans alone.
They say we know more about space than we do about our oceans.
Well, I already know what it was, awesome. Guys.
Oh, yeah?
All right, so here's the USS Cyclops, okay?
That's pretty small. Oh!
For those of you listeners, check out YouTube or Spotify video, and you will get a visual demonstration of how the Cyclops was no more.
Yeah, we got the Cyclops going along. We all know.
Totally feasible. All right, so I mean, this major ship disappears. I'm sorry, I have to laugh.
Never let them know your next move.
Yeah, no, really. So the major ship disappears. This isn't the only ship. As you know, there's hundreds. I know, Klaus, you did tons of research. Bret, you also did tons of research. So did I. There's lots of shipwrecks around Bermuda. There's lots of shipwrecks that have happened in this area. So it's completely possible that there's more to it. Go ahead.
People talk about all the, accidents or disappearances, stuff that happens there, but by capita, having that big of a trade route and that much shipping vessels, whether commercial, private, military in the area, like you're going to have more, disappearances. I mean, just like in a big city, you're going to have more murders, or it seems like higher crime, versus like South Dakota, but there's also a higher population concentration.
It's kind of like when people ask me all the time, is this a safe apartment complex to live in? I'm like, it's an apartment complex. So no,
it's subjective.
Condensed number of people in a small area, you're straight up, even if there are no hardened criminals that move in, the sheer number, it's a chance game, right? Like if 1 out of every 100 people is going to commit a crime, which is actually much higher than that. Let's say 10 out of every 100, and you have 600 people living in an apartment complex, 60 of those are going to be committing crimes. Whereas if you live in a sparsely populated neighborhood, it's going to seem like there's less crime because there's just less people. Like, it's a numbers game. It's the same thing here.
I can understand your statistics. I mean, we all know, we've been over some research too. Statistics show that the Bermuda Triangle doesn't have any more wrecks or plane crashes than anywhere else on the planet. But being someone who likes math, not necessarily the greatest at it, but being someone who likes math, statistics can be manipulated based on a whole bunch of variants.
And that's its own statistic.
It's hard for me to believe as a person that this area that has all of these famous incidents along the way isn't special, isn't something more about it. We know that there's magnetic situations. I'm sorry, the North magnetic clouds. You have to help me out with this one. The magnetic poles line up, right?
True north. Yeah, the
Right.
agonic line.
Right.
So what I would say is strange about the Bermuda Triangle, if you're looking strictly at numbers, is there a disproportionate amount of disappearances, shipwrecks, planes lost here? No.
no.
Is there something weird in the sense of
The nature of
wreckage
these.
not being found? Definitely.
Ding, ding.
Personally,
Ding, ding, ding.
I am a full believer that the Puerto Rico Trench and the Gulf Stream carry wreckage away to unknown destinations where I'm sure it'll be found eventually, but it
Nature's
has some
vacuum cleaner.
geographical anomalies here.
Nature's vacuum.
It literally kind of is like a vacuum. So anything going into the water could get sucked hundreds of miles away where nobody's looking for it. So that I believe, to me, is probably the most likely explanation. I'll go there before I go to aliens, but I do love that we have the alien believer here to.
Of course. I believe
that.
a lot more. Yeah, I mean, we can sit here and again, you guys all know I love science. I'm a very firm believer of it. Obviously, the Earth is round, so I like science. But this one, there's too much unknown here for me to go into this. Oh, we can explain it away with this, and this. It's not just these two incidences. Podcasters out there, I'm sure you've all heard about the Bermuda Triangle. Do some research on this. There's a lot of stories out there that we just don't have time for that take us into very questionable territory.
You know,
aliens
someday,
like that are great.
maybe next year, we should do another Bermuda Triangle episode where we explore some of the more obsolete disappearances.
What nobody talks about.
Because we just hit the big two.
I will go to the Bahamas just to test the theory. I'm just letting you know that there.
You're such a martyr. God, the sacrifices you make for us.
And your blog will be on Patreon. No, all I'm thinking about is that high ass tortoise from Finding Nemo.
Oh my God.
Dude, ride the wave. I love that guy. Was it Mr. Tortoise is my dad's name? Yeah, Mr. Tortoise is my dad's name.
Mr. Tortoise is my father.
Yeah.
Bro.
Mr. Turtle.
You know what's funny is I have to admit, I mean, I didn't know a lot about the Gulf Stream until I saw Finding Nemo and actually realized what it actually was. I was like, oh,
thank you, Pixar, for educating us.
Yeah, I love it when a cartoon educates my ignorant self. All right, so we can get into some theories and counter theories. I know, Cloud, you did a little editing on our outline, and I probably have an old copy. So if you want to jump on in.
I tried to, guys, this is the part where my nerd came out, so I overdid it, of course. And we realized that when we were recording this the first time, the failed time. So I went through and I took the hatchet to this, which was painful, physically painful for me to do. But I'm like, people don't care about this. People want to hear about aliens and ghost ships and shit like that. They don't want to hear about, compass malfunctions and all this shit. But we're going to get into it anyway because we can, because no one's about
Well, you are our resident research-ologist, so why don't you drop us some facts and then we will play with some conspiracies.
Excellent. So by the time author Vincent Gaddis coined the phrase Bermuda Triangle in a 1964 magazine article, additional mysterious accidents had occurred in the area, including 3 passenger planes that went down despite having just sent all's well messages. Charles Berlitz, whose grandfather founded the Berlitz Language Schools, stoked the legend even further in 1974 with a sensational bestseller about the legend. Since then, scores of fellow paranormal writers have blamed the triangle's supposed lethalness on everything from aliens, Atlantis, and sea monsters to time warps and reverse gravity fields, whereas more scientifically minded theorists have pointed to magnetic anomalies, waterspouts, or huge eruptions of methane gas from the ocean floor. In all probability, however, there is no one single theory that solves the mystery. As one skeptic put it, trying to find a common cause for every Bermuda Triangle disappearance is no more logical than trying to find a common cause for every automobile accident in Arizona. Specifically, just Arizona, I guess.
Well, they're terrible drivers in Arizona. Nothing against Arizona, but you suck at driving. Oh, my goodness.
Moreover, although storms, reefs, and the Gulf Stream can cause navigational challenges there, maritime insurance leader Lloyd's of London does not recognize the Bermuda Triangle as an especially hazardous place. Neither does the U.S. Coast Guard, which says, in a review of many aircraft and vessel losses in the area over the years, there has been nothing discovered that would indicate that casualties were the result of anything other than physical causes. No extraordinary factors have ever been identified. Which just sounds like something the military would say.
Fake news. Sorry.
It's weather balloon.
It's the gas rebelling from Venus in the moonlight. Yes.
Yes, that checks out. So the biggest one that everyone points back to with the Bermuda Triangle has to come first, has to be its own section, which is compass malfunctions. Oh my God, there's aliens around, the compasses are all malfunctioning, right? In almost every account of the mystery surrounding the Bermuda Triangle, you'll see reference to the fact that it is one of only 2 places on Earth, the other being the Devil's Sea off the coast of Japan, where a compass points to true north rather than magnetic north. And we did hint at this earlier, and we're going to explain it to you because I didn't know anything about this until doing this research. So theorists say that this causes compasses to malfunction in this area and ships and planes to go off course. And hopefully we all know how a compass works, but it works because its magnetic needle is attracted by the magnetism of the Earth, which draws it to point to the constantly shifting magnetic North Pole. The geographic North Pole, on the other hand, is static and is located 1,200 miles north of the magnetic pole. The variation between the 2 readings is known as magnetic declination or compass variation, which can change as you move across the globe. The agonic line is an imaginary line where true north and magnetic north are in perfect alignment. There is no magnetic declination. At points west of the agonic line, a magnetic needle will point east of true north, which is positive declination. At points east of the agonic line, a magnetic needle will point west of true north, which is negative declination. Extended lines that mark the constant magnetic declination away from the agonic line are called isogonic lines. In the early 18th century, Edmund Halley noticed that the agonic line was slowly moving westward. He came up with the idea of showing declination as contour lines on a map. Since then, scientists have noted a westward drift of the agonic line with an average velocity of about 0.2 degrees per year. The drift is not equal in all places, however. It is stronger in the Atlantic than in the Pacific. Navigators must always compensate for magnetic declination when charting their courses. While the agonic line once passed through the Bermuda Triangle, it now falls within the Gulf of Mexico, rendering claims that it can contribute to disappearances in the triangle inaccurate. Calculation errors anywhere could cause a plane or a ship to go off course. The compass malfunction theory assumes that experienced pilots and captains passing through the area were unaware of magnetic declination, which is highly unlikely. Not to mention that the vast majority of boaters and flyers do pass through this area without incident. There's your science.
There's some science for you, boys and girls. A little rocket science there, actually. Nice job. Nice job. I mean, it definitely can give you some explanations into some factual bases of things that can happen. Sure, I will give you that all day.
You sound so reluctant.
Well, I mean, I totally get the theories behind it. Brett, you were a map guy in the military. You understand that concept of all those things when it comes to latitude, longitude, magnetism, etc.
Being a cavalry scout, recon, like with a map, like even as a trainee and you're learning, it's not something you're just going to forget, So I don't think like experienced pilot or even some of these trainees, like you called them, I think undergraduates earlier, like they have some experience. It just, to me, that makes it even more odd. You can't tell me that, 13 guys from, the 40s, pre-internet, pre-everything, that had nothing really better to do than to read or to study things, especially for their job, didn't know this.
This was their whole job, their whole being in training.
And that was
that's how you get home. Like you want to get home to see your lady, like that's how you do it.
And more people read back then too. So I mean,
I know what a lost art.
I know you guys out there read some more. It's good for you. Don't be like
little
Kanye.
Aside. The way that I learned east from west, because I used to think that I was bad at directions. Turns out all it took was being in field training as a cop at the tender age of like 22, with a 300-pound man sitting in my passenger seat, screaming in my face until he was red in the face that some theoretical person was dying somewhere and I couldn't get to them because I didn't know east from west. My God, you want to talk about like you'll never mistake east from west again? This guy sat in my passenger seat for like 4 weeks and wouldn't let me use my MDT, my map. So he would close it, and then he would, like, in the middle of his driving around, relaxing, you got your quick trip drink, he'd be like, officer down, and he'd give me an intersection, and I had to get there as he's screaming in my ear. And this is all theoretical, right? Like, there's not a real officer down, but that was how he decided to traumatize me into learning my cardinal directions, and every city block was just to be screaming at me at the top of his voice. So that was fun.
Did it work?
Oh my God, it worked. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, you probably learned like even and odd numbers on the streets and
That shit
north
I
and
knew.
southbound
100
freeways,
blocks I had memorized. All that I knew. He was a huge dude. Like, and his
like
voice
odd
was like a
freeways are north and
loudspeaker.
south, even
And
east and
he
west.
would, in the middle of nothing happening, just slam the MDT closed and turn and scream directly into my ear about some imaginary location I had to get to right now. Like, this, yeah, dude, bless him. Bless his heart.
Well,
I mean,
obviously
in the military, they make these stress fires. Like you'd have to wear all your gear, and you'd have to be doing like jumping jacks and like run a lap.
Yep, did that.
And then go grab your weapon. You have an elevated heart rate, and you got to get rounds on target down range. This is a training exercise, but it's like it's simulated that elevated heart rate. That you get from adrenaline.
Oh yeah, well, we did a lot of that too.
I don't have the benefit of your guys' training, but when I was out of high school, I delivered pizzas, and that teaches you serious direction. You learn addresses. Yeah, you want to get there on time. And back in the day when I did it, it was 30 minutes or less, or it was coming out of your paycheck. Just letting you know, boys and girls. And just a quick reference to what Cloud said for those on the West Coast who don't know what a quick trip drink is. Just think 7-Eleven. It's about the same.
It's the best gas station ever.
7-Eleven is.
No,
yes.
Ew.
Well, 7-Eleven doesn't have gas.
Quick Trip.
Quick Trip's good, but they're not the best.
They're the best because they're not going to spit in my drink. That's why they're the best. And for those, drinks. All right, little trivia bit for you. Yeah. I don't know if you guys know what card skimmers are, but they're a way that thieves will steal your identity oftentimes at gas pumps, right? They will install this very thin chip into the card reader, and it will collect all the information from your card as you swipe it. Quick Trip, every hour on the hour, their clerks go out and check the pumps for skimmers. Just so you're aware of that.
Wow. That's better than the companies I've worked for where it was like once a month we would check for it. By the way, podcasters, just a quick lesson on what Clouds is saying. Don't swipe your card at the pump. Just go inside.
Do not. Love a shit.
I know. I see people do it all the time.
Use cash. Because gas stations in general are just such high traffic areas, and they're transient, and they're open usually 24 hours a day, which means the likelihood of someone stealing your credit card information at a gas station is infinitely higher than most other places. So definitely don't ever scan your card at the pump. Go inside. Quick Trip, like I said, is the best place if you're going to scan the pump, like that I know of, because they do check every hour for skimmers.
That is not a conspiracy, ladies and gentlemen. That is not a conspiracy at all. But now we're going to get into some conspiracies because that
we're off track
is what we like to do. So we're going to check out
disturbances.
We're going to check out some conspiracies that we have going on here. Magnetic disturbances. Is that where you're at on the outline? Did I miss something?
That's where I was
at.
A
page? Damn, I missed a page.
God damn it, Aaron.
Okay. So before we jump into conspiracies, we're going to talk about magnetic.
You get promoted, you get lazy. God damn.
And I know, man. I'm just jumping ahead. I'm excited about conspiracies because all this fact stuff is getting to me.
What is it from Office Space? He's like, I don't really do anything. He's like, your management material.
Yeah, fit right in.
That is true across the board. My God.
All right, so we're going to move into the magnetic conspiracies or magnetic disturbances. See, I'm drawing into the conspiracy. We'll get there, boys and girls. Magnetic disturbances and anomalies. Brett, you want to take this one real quick?
Sure. It has been hypothesized that the interference of local magnetic disturbances and anomalies results into a faulty reading of the compass, and as a consequence, ships and planes of the Bermuda Triangle were misdirected and eventually were lost. Let's explore. Earth's magnetism is a commonly known phenomenon to any student who has read physics. The magnetic fields produced along the Earth's surface is due to the magnetic forces emanating out of the core of the Earth. And this magnetic field is usually quite uniform across the surface of said Earth. However, in certain places on the Earth's surface, particularly those that are rich with iron ore deposits, the magnetic field can vary substantially. For example, northern Minnesota, Lake Superior, or extensive lava beds such as that near Grants, New Mexico, are such exceptions where there are some local magnetic disturbances.
Now, real quick, let me jump in there, Brett. I haven't seen a bunch of people disappearing in Lake Superior in northern Minnesota. People disappearing in the Bermuda Triangle. I'm just putting it out there. All right, go ahead, my friend.
Aliens.
Yes.
Maybe it's going to...
Got us trained. It's like a clicker.
Answer C on the multiple choice. The Navy has conducted tests on the Bermuda Triangle area to check if there are any such magnetic disturbances in this area. They have done so as a worldwide program to update navigational charts and not to investigate any mystery in the Bermuda Triangle. So they say.
Allegedly.
Their findings are very clear. There is no local magnetic disturbance in the Bermuda Triangle area. So that's very matter of fact for them to say that.
Is there? Is there? Go ahead.
Sounds like somebody that was hiding something would say. In contrast to magnetic disturbances, magnetic anomalies are small deviations in the compass, which are usually caused by the Earth's movement and underlying ferromagnetic substances. And such small compass deviations are unlikely to cause any effect on any passing boats or planes. Oceanographer Simon Boxall mentioned that magnetic anomalies can be caused by the Earth's mantle moving below the Earth's crust, and that the nearest such location is 1,000 miles off the coast of Brazil, which is nowhere close to the Bermuda Triangle.
Well,
so that kind of falls apart.
It does kind of fall apart, but I want to go back to something that Bret sent me on TikTok. I don't know if Clouds looked at it or not. With that comedian Ron Munch, he basically states, like when he's asking about if people believe conspiracy, the United States is taking care of all of us, right? And for us parents out there, we have a couple of kids. Ron Munch made it pretty simple. I lie to my kid all the time. So what says the government isn't like, oh, let's not say anything about that.
Oh my God.
They don't need to know this.
I can promise every single one of you, the government is lying to you. And if you think otherwise, you're probably in a cult. I don't know how to break it to you any more gently than that. They are fucking lying to you. If you have any faith in your government, I don't know, go back to school or don't, because that's the government. I don't know, Google stuff. Or go work for the government. That will cure you of trusting the government. Believe me. They're lying.
This coming from two people who have worked or do work for government agencies, boys and girls. Look at it. They know what they're talking about.
Any semblance of trust you have in the government will be cured the second that you get any kind of government job. I promise.
How did Ryan word it? He said it was a circus inside of a circus and it was on fire.
Imagine a circus and the circus is on fire.
Yeah.
That makes sense. For someone who hasn't worked for the government, that makes complete sense. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of us that they're lying to.
But the show must go on, and the circus just keeps burning, and people keep spending money to get in. So,
well, and if you look at it now, those truths have become so far-fetched that we have a whole chunk of society that are believing things that are well beyond the reality of what should be believed. And I'm a conspiracy junkie.
We'll get into some of our personal beliefs about aliens, UFOs, and shit like that after we truck through this, because we're actually making really good time this time. We were not this far along the first time we recorded.
No.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we did a little trimming. Done. So all right, we're gonna get away from the facts, boys and girls. We're gonna get into what we see as some of the conspiracies that are out there. My favorite and exciting part of it. So let's get that started. Let's start out with one of my personal favorites, and I know that you guys know a little bit about this too. Atlantis. All right. For those of you out there who don't know what Atlantis is, or the lost city of Atlantis, Charles Burt's highly popular book called The Bermuda Triangle, published in 1974, and he talked about the lost city of Atlantis and other paranormal elements that he tried to connect with Triangle's incidents. Now, the lost city of Atlantis, there's a lot of theories behind it. It was a city at one point, well beyond like when we were in our early time as human beings, that was highly advanced. A lot of theories, a lot of things out there about that. And supposedly it disappeared. And a lot of people say it was in the Bermuda Triangle. So
amazing Disney cartoon.
Oh, yeah, I feel underrated. Was it this episode the first time that we filmed that we did the favorite Disney cartoons, or is that something else? Am I just confused?
I lose track sometimes,
I do
honestly.
Too. Yeah, you lost track, Brett. He's like,
I don't really remember, but I love the theory behind the fact of City of Atlantis. Now, again, boys and girls, that's another conspiracy, but it does go along with this, where people do feel that it did exist. It was highly advanced. Again, aliens. I know I keep saying that, but this one actually people do talk about alien civilization, landing pads, things like that. And if it really sank beneath the ocean, if it really sank under the Bermuda Triangle, it could be a great explanation for a lot of things that were going on.
We need to do an episode on that, because I'd love to play devil's advocate and talk about like
you always love to play devil's advocate.
I do. It's kind of my kink.
Devil's daughter
there's
over here.
For sure. Daddy.
Oh God.
There's a quote that says that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, okay, or aliens.
Oh, I firmly believe that. I mean, the Egyptian people alone, highly advanced, well beyond their time, and again, had a lot of what Ra and all those gods that they talk about. What's that show with the portal that they go through? Anyway, Stargate. Thank you. I should know that. I love that shit.
You should.
But they talk about it being landing pads and things like that. So yeah, I can totally believe that at the time when people don't know what's going on, they could see it as magic instead of being just modern technology.
Yeah.
Well, time travel, you go back to, ancient Rome and you got a tablet and you're watching, Schitt's Creek on Netflix, and they're going to think that, you're like an all powerful God,
That's probably true if they had any idea what Schitt's Creek was. I think.
Well, I'm saying, because it's just what my point is, saying that they don't understand. Just because you don't understand it, you think that it's something so far and above.
I love how you brought time travel into this out of the blue. But let's stay tuned for a future. I do love Schitt's Creek.
It is funny.
Dan Levy is my spirit animal. I just fucking love him.
Oh, good to know.
So let's put all that on the shelf for a future Atlantis episode, which I would love to do.
Yes.
It's funny that you brought up ancient Egypt, actually, because I was just thinking while not sleeping last night, wide awake in the nocturnal hours, about doing a technology of ancient Egypt episode. So
I would love
to do that.
I love ancient Egypt and some of the theories and stuff that fall behind a society that should have not been as advanced as they were.
I mean, a lot of really good shit to dig in. So we're going to tuck that on the shelf. Atlantis for sure would be a fun one. Atlantis is one of people's favorite theories about the Bermuda Triangle, as far as that's what's causing, all the ancient crystals that sunk with the city are causing these anomalies. So you think it's Atlantis?
No, I think it's aliens, but I think that Atlantis has a lot to do with aliens. I've always theorized the fact, like you said, the specialty energy crystals. I think we have that in our notes. Legend says the city of Atlantis heavily depended on some special energy crystals, which were extremely powerful. The crystals radiate huge amounts of energy, also known as death rays. I don't know if I'd go that far, but maybe. And they cause navigational images of passing ships and airplanes to malfunction. Maybe it's Aquaman, if you really want to get down on that. But I do believe, I am a firm believer in Atlantis, if anybody really wants to care about that one. But I do think that it is alien orientated, just kind of like the pyramids of Egypt. And because of that, if it did sink, it would explain a lot of not necessarily purposeful disappearances. Flight 95, they could have just, like I said, been down there checking on something. Maybe it was like if we were to go to other worlds, we would probably, and they were worlds that we didn't want us to see. Star Trek does this a lot, where we would have these little posts. I mean, we do it in other countries, right, Vet? Where we have these posts,
embassies,
some sort of posts, or even hidden ones, little bases in somewhere that we're not supposed to be kind of
Sleeper
monitoring,
cells.
watching fields. Hey, that's a little terrorist, but we'll go with that.
Antarctica.
Hey, Antarctica. Yeah, there you go. You guys
don't get him started on Antarctica.
Oh, I love Antarctica.
Don't get him started.
My theory behind that is, oh my God, the ice wall. So my theory behind that,
telling us something.
Yeah, more than we know. But my theory behind that is it's Atlantis was real. It probably sank. It probably was a post of some sort of technology, and I think it was sank on purpose. I think the aliens
I was about to ask
saw
you that.
us. Yeah, of course. I think that they kind of saw what was going on. Maybe it was discovered. There is stories out there from philosophers of the time, a long time ago, that talk about this lost city. And it just brings me back to aliens, which is what comes down to our next conspiracy: alien abductions and UFOs.
Excellent.
Clouds, I'm going to give this to you because I know that you are not an alien person. So I want you to drop off this specific story. We have a very specific story with alien abduction. It's one of, I hate to admit it, but it is one of the only ones, right, Clouds, that you were able to find about aliens and UFOs.
And here's the thing. When I go looking for a story, it's the cop in me. It's the researcher in me. I don't want to find a story, I saw an alien with my cousin Vinny while we were smoking a joint off this coast. I want, the details. I want witnesses. I want corroborated evidence. And this was one of the very few I found that after reading through it, I was like, okay, this has this has everything that I want from a firsthand account in detail. Because if we wanted to sit here and regale you with alien UFO abduction stories in the Bermuda Triangle, there's thousands of them, but none of them are substantive. None of them have meat to them. Yes, Brett?
Well, the cop and you're also looking to see if their stories vary as eyewitnesses Because if they're all saying the exact same thing, that's not conducive with an investigation, right?
Put me
From
in a
your
room with him,
experience.
Sarge.
With the aliens. Let's find
I'll
out.
play bad cop all by myself. Okay.
Nice.
So
Well, I really
Okay,
like this
Hopper.
story. I love
too.
that it's a part of it. So why don't you drop us on this alien story?
Absolutely.
Eyewitness account, aliens.
Are you guys ready to hear me absolutely butcher the fuck out of some Greek names? My
Let's bring it
apologies to our Grecian brothers and sisters and for thems, but I'm going to butcher these names. I'm so sorry. USAF Greek Merchant Marine Radio Operator Polycarp Spensnaz.
Spenzas.
I'm going to go with Spenzas. Yeah.
Polycarp had an indescribably strange and unforgettable experience while working aboard the vessel Potitties.
I like Potiti.
Potiti SWJC
It's like a
in
po' boy.
1978 off of Bermuda. For Polycarp, the merchant mariner, the legendary dangers of the Bermuda Triangle suddenly became personal in 78 when in the course of his normal duties, he observed the following strange events unfold. As he recalls it, we started from Puerto Matanzas, Cuba, bound for Algiers with an average speed of 11 miles. Shortly before 12 noon local time, the officers of the ship's bridge began to notice that it appeared to them that the ship was sailing at an unusually high speed, but the instruments showed a constant speed of 10 to 11 nautical miles an hour. Some of my colleagues initially hypothesized that maybe I had made a mistake in timing, since I was the radio operator. But that did not happen, and the ship continued to tear through the waves like a dolphin. At 12 noon, he continued, the captain asked the second officer to put a Pakistani sailor at the wheel, since he himself did not feel well. He could not lift his arms, and his body felt too heavy all over. Soon, the electrician arrived on the bridge after coming out from the engine room, upset that he had noticed that all the clocks on the boat had gone ahead 2 whole hours. Additionally, the helmsman was unable to hold a steady course because the compass, which was gyroscopic and shielded from electromagnetic fields, was turning like crazy. So, he had to put on the autopilot and we managed to maintain a steady course. The seasoned merchant mariner goes on to relate, but the strangest of all was something that happened a little after 5 p.m. The cook and I were playing backgammon in the smoking room. It's my favorite line in this outline.
Love that. Yes.
I can like smell that room.
I could write a novel based on the line, the cook and I were playing backgammon in the smoking room. Like, God, that's so good.
Yeah. That's the start of a great book.
When suddenly we looked back and saw, to the left of the ship, i.e. the northwest side, just a few miles away, a large, white, unidentified flying object in the sky. Then, aliens. 2 smaller flying objects to the west of the large one, and indeed one of them was attached to it. Experiments of Americans, I assumed. Also a great line.
That's a dick comment, by the way.
God. There's like something fucking wild in the sky. Fucking Americans. Just go back to that Yemen cook.
Again.
I left immediately and went to the bridge to ask, full of anguish, if someone else had seen these bizarre devices. Not one had noticed. However, I was sure that something strange was happening with time and how we were affected by the acceleration of the movement of the UFOs. Polycarp explains, I looked at my watch and time had passed. I put the radio receiver to 500 kilohertz to fill in the calendar and heard Morse code, but it was unnaturally quick. I put out a time request signal to 15 millihertz, Radio Moscow, and heard the answering time signals too quickly, so fast that I thought it was the station's fault. I jumped from my chair, opened the window of the chart room, and looked at the captain. I could use the Morse system, but noticed that my hands could not handle even 5 letters per minute, and it took about 2 minutes to just walk to the chair for the transmitter. Upset, I told the captain, my hands are just not working, they're not listening to me. He replied, smart guy, that nobody should touch the ship's autopilot.
Good Let call. Skynet handle it.
Great Skynet. Call on the captain's part there. It's like, okay,
Agreed.
we're all getting fucked with. Don't touch that. Just nobody touch that.
Don't touch it because that shit's working. Yeah.
Right. So he relates that the next day the crew was discussing all these strange events that had happened to everyone. A sailor complained that he once lit a cigarette. He didn't even have enough time to smoke it because it burned immediately. The second mate, who served on the midnight to 4 a.m. shift, had gone to his cabin and was brushing his teeth before he went to bed. He suddenly cried out that the time had just changed to 23:40, which is 11:40 p.m., so we didn't have time to sleep. All of us felt bradycardia, which is an abnormally slow heartbeat, as well as hypothermia during that time. For years now, he explained to interviewers, I have tried to explain these curious occurrences. I believe that the bradycardia and reduced crew reflexes are due to what is called gravitational time dilation. Gravitational waves, or varionia, I'm probably butchering that, emitted by the acceleration of the UFO for takeoff and other movements, cause biochemical changes in the metabolism of the human body. The process occurs according to the theories of Niels Bohr and Albert Einstein. So whatever actually happened, it was experienced by more than one person that strange day in the Atlantic. Time will tell if any more evidence will ever be found of the bizarre happenings in this region of the ocean.
I love this story.
Me
because
too.
it puts a lot on the table of some eyewitness accounts of exactly what I'm talking about. Aliens. Bret, you touched on this earlier, not necessarily time travel, but gravitational time dilation. Any science nerd out there knows that if you travel at 0.999% of the speed of light, and you don't have a way to protect yourself, you are literally going to travel in time while you watch the rest of the world speed by you. So I love this story because to me, it's just confirmation of a lot of crap that I'm telling you right now.
It's I just think the missing time is just really interesting, and a lot of the UAP stories you hear, you know, the missing time usually is a factor in a lot of the witness accounts or victim accounts, I should say.
Devil's daughter here. Here I come to play devil's advocate.
All right, K Cloud's the science chick.
Okay. Consider instead that we don't like the aliens for this. I don't like the aliens for this, Sarge.
All right.
So we've got potential magnetic fields, right? Because I don't necessarily trust that there's no magnetic fields here, especially because, you know, at the time in the 70s, you know, the Earth's mantle could continue shifting and magnetic anomalies could come and go. Methane gas, which is one we'll get into later. Different gases could be released from the trenches deep underneath the Bermuda Triangle. And these things could have a biological effect on the human body, which could include ocular hallucinations, obviously physiological responses like feeling sick or feeling dizzy or disoriented. Again, because my first reaction is to kind of go to something scientific for an explanation prior to exploring the alien realm. It seems to me that everyone on this boat, at the very least, was experiencing physical distress, right? They all report that.
Well, I agree with Bret. It sounds like you're saying they were high.
Easily. Yeah. Something could have been released from the ocean. Again, a gas bubble of some kind, we don't know exactly what, that could have affected them, that they could have breathed in without noticing it or necessarily feeling it other than the way they're describing. Even the visual hallucinations, quote unquote, or UFOs, whatever you want to think. There's a lot that to me would have to be ruled out before, although this is a good story.
There are two individuals in this story that I feel extremely sorry for. The guy that lit a cigarette and didn't even get to take a hit.
Oh,
and then the other guy that was able to go to sleep before his shift. Like, that's like the worst nightmare. Like, you go to sleep and then immediately your alarm goes off.
You know who I don't feel sorry for? Is the cook playing backgammon in the smoking room. Love that guy.
Well, I got to go with Bret on this one too. I mean, I do feel sorry for the cigarette guy. I am a former smoker, and you light a cigarette and it goes away. You're just like, damn, what the hell happened? And I do feel sorry for the guy who with the time thing with the thing, because that again, worst nightmare. Go to bed, your alarm clock goes off immediately. I think we've all experienced that at some point in our life, and you're like, crap, I got to go back to work. Like, I don't care if you're on a ship or not.
The nightmare continues.
Do I want to play on your theory that they're all high from some sort of random methane gas exploding from the ocean that they didn't notice? I'm a little more doubtful over that than I am actually of the alien thing. But again, you guys all kind of know where I stand on the alien one.
I'm not really like, what's the fucking word? An oceanographer, an ocean scientist. God, I'm an
oceanographer. Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Studies of oceans. Yeah, studies of the ocean. Yes,
marine biologist or anything. But at the same time, I feel like there's got to be some science-y bullshit going on. Even if it's caused by aliens, there's something that's being released or something that's happening that's affecting humans. And not just one human, but obviously multiple. Everyone on board this boat was experiencing, again, physiological reactions, illness, hands, shaking, unable to move, loss of motor control.
Go
And
ahead, Brett.
I went to the Alphabet Boys Google, and it looks like the body's reaction to just a little bit of methane gas to high quantities of methane gas. These are some of the things that can happen: rapid breathing, increased heart rate, clumsiness and dizziness, decreased vision, especially in low lights, euphoria, decreased alertness, loss of memory, weakness, fatigue, emotional responses, nausea and vomiting, fainting and collapse, convulsions, coma, and death. And that goes from like the most mild to the
I'm
most
just
severe.
gonna.
Why does that sound like one of those commercials for some antibiotic that you want to take and all the side effects?
But
that come
sped
on? You're
up, like
Yeah, and they're like playing with their golden retriever in the park.
it's like an
Yeah, like,
I spoke to
antidepressant.
my doctor about
yeah,
Talk
I
to your
want to
doctor
grow
about
more
this.
hair.
May cause death.
Yeah, I want to grow more hair, but I'm going to take all these risks at the same time. Again, totally believable. Brett, you're supposed to be on my side, so
I
thanks
know.
for
Thank
that.
you. Thanks for the assist,
Jerk.
Brett. God damn.
Oh man, you guys are crushing my conspiracy concepts. This is a conspiracy show, boys and girls. Come on,
Sorry,
you're
sorry.
killing it.
I'll put on I'll get some fake glasses to put on so I can be well in my research. I just
Wow.
don't believe.
no, you need the ones with the shades, and then like when you're done, you just close the
Well,
shades. Like you're like,
Yes, I
as
do.
a real human being and a logical person, I can easily go with just about everything you've put on the table, Clouds. Like anything is possible. But in the same page, I think this is just police training coming out of you. That
Yeah.
little bit of badgy goodness that's like, hey, I've been taught to look at the facts and explain things that I can't explain. Nothing against the popo. But yeah, you guys tend to look at shit that isn't always necessarily there as a way to explain it. Goddamn movie.
He
kid.
says while touting aliens.
Hey, aliens, come on. There's a lot of people that believe it.
There's some eyewitness
Let-
accounts that we just read. So
Let me get Neil deGrasse Tyson on here and we'll talk about aliens all day.
God. Okay, I want to smoke a blunt with him for real.
Oh, man. That guy's awesome. I mean, he
And
literally
I
killed the
don't
planet.
smoke blunts. I just want to harken back to Brett's question about who you'd smoke a blunt with. So
that was a
Okay.
good question.
it was. I just
So-
wanted to make sure to preface that. Now let's carry on.
We do have
Oh.
one
I-
more conspiracy. Oh, no. Go ahead, Brett. I'm sorry.
I do have a revision because you threw me on that. Instead of I'm substituting Snoop Dogg for my answer, I'm putting Daniel Tosh, the comedian.
Nobody
for
understands
South
comedian?
Park.
what we're talking about now.
Yes.
Is that the thing from last week or the last episode?
It
Oh
was
no,
like
this was a few
weeks
episodes ago.
Oh,
Our
okay.
real fans will know what I'm talking about.
Okay, well, when we've all really decided who we want to get blitzed with, we'll do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's
next year
right.
or
That
something.
was a good question. No, that was actually on the first recording of this show that nobody saw, so no one has any idea what the hell
It
we're talking
was?
about. I believe
Yeah,
it was.
that might have been.
It was on the first recording.
'Cause we had to re-record
boys and
this,
girls
so.
podcast out there. Let me just clarify, Brett. When we tried to do this the first time, if you watch our last episode, we did talk about the fact we had some technical difficulties. That was a question that Brett brought up. He loves to lighten the mood. I love the fact that he does that because his questions are awesome. If you didn't watch the last episode, and it was something about who do you want to sit around and smoke weed with on a famous scale. So we'll try to remember to get to that toward the end of the episode. That might be a little funny way to close ourselves out since it was hilarious the first time. Okay, so let's get more into this. We have one more conspiracy. It's like 3 pages long. I'm looking at the time. Let's trim this a little bit. It's called electronic fog
Oh, no.
theory.
Let me take this because I trimmed it to like a paragraph.
Did you? Oh, I was going to say I have like
this is
3
one
pages of
This
it.
is one of the ones I cut out.
Oh, fantastic.
So-
Okay, so electronic fog theory, boys and girls. Clouds, take it away.
Absolutely. So this is one that will come up a lot constantly in any documentary that you watch. If you want to know more about this, just Google the Hutchison effect in the Bermuda Triangle. One of the explanations of disappearances in this area is based on electronic fog, which is something similar to what Canadian scientist John Hutchison could demonstrate in his own lab. Got a lot on that. It is something like a grayish cloud of electromagnetic fields that get formed above the ocean. Such electronic fog seems to appear from nowhere and completely engulfs a ship or an aircraft. The fog then keeps moving along with the ship or the plane, and soon all the electronic systems and the instruments start to malfunction. Nothing works correctly any longer. Spatial disorientation and time distortion starts, and finally the ship or the aircraft.
Sounds like Flight 19. Why they couldn't see anything,
Yes.
didn't know where they were, like can't figure out where the sun was.
You guys are
like
killing
that.
me with facts over here.
I know, right? And finally, the ship or the aircraft can even disintegrate or disappear without a trace. So far, all such incidents of electronic fog had been described as supernatural phenomena or as a mere sensational stories from writers wanting to sell their own books on the Bermuda Triangle. This is despite the fact that some of the real SOS calls quoting the strange fog actually came from veteran and experienced pilots or coast guards, And that's all I'm going to say on that. It's a thing that's been reported. The theory is electronic fog. There's something called the Hutchison effect, where he kind of tried to create this in his own lab, which means his living room. So feel free to. And the wild thing about that, I'll put in a nutshell, is his neighbors in his apartment building started experiencing their shit floating and electromagnetic anomalies in their own apartments because of the experiments he was conducting in his apartment.
So, like right now, stuff in your living room or where you're at just starts floating in the air. Like, what's your first response? I know
I'm
Aaron,
shooting
it's
it.
aliens, but
Oh, I'm going to be stoked. Oh, no, I'd definitely go with ghosts on this one because, like the paranormal, again, whole nother topic, but I'd be like, holy shit, there's ghosts in my house.
I'd be like grabbing a knife, like, you're finally coming for me, bitch.
Of
Like
course, you
your
already
whole
have 4
house.
knives on you, so you're good. You just pull one out, get the axe out of your couch. Yeah, so you're good to go. Yeah, I would freak out. What about you guys? I mean, if you were sitting in that boat, you're, again, factual people who look at research.
I mean,
and
my
your shit
whole
starts floating.
my whole place goes Mary Poppins. Like, I'm gonna have to like look around or see if my neighbors are going through the same thing. Like,
Hutchison? Is that you?
Is that you doing that down there? Hey, knocking on the floor.
Mad scientist. Okay, first of all, if there's a mad scientist in my building and he's not involving me in his bullshit, I'm gonna be pissed.
Well, he should be watching this show. That's what I'm saying, because he would.
you
like
just see that Frankenstein lightning like hitting outside their window. Like,
okay, I'm
All right,
literally, my roommate comes home the other day and he's like, there's someone in the woods calling for help. And I'm like, let's go get him. And he's like, what are you doing? Come back. It's a ghost. I'm like, no, let's go find out. And of course, he didn't really hear anything, but I'm like all ready to go fuck up some ghost. And
running
he's
that
like,
Japanese suicide forest.
Yeah, that could be a whole nother topic. I love ghosts and paranormal and haunted shit. Just by the way, that shit is very cool.
I would love to do some more of those episodes. Let's keep that master list rolling.
Excellent.
But feel
All right,
free to
so
look
we're
this
gonna.
up, guys.
Yeah, check it out, everybody. Check out the Hutchins facts. Again, we have dropped some serious facts on you. We've dropped some serious conspiracies on you. We do have a little bit on actual, just basic facts that I know Clouds is all over on the fact that she has already crushed most of my conspiracies as well. So I'm going to give it to Bret, and I'm going to say, Bret, why don't you give us some actual facts? These are plausible theories about the Bermuda Triangle. We've touched base on a few, but we're just going to drop them real quick for you. Go ahead, Bret. What do you got for us?
So these are just more believable theories. Mm-hmm. So many bizarre theories have been put forth as to why there have been so many disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle. Are alien abductions to blame for the disappearances? Is the velocity of Atlantis reaching out to the surface world with disastrous consequences?
Yes.
Or are ghosts of the sea pulling others into the deep?
Yes.
Sirens. Not everyone feels that it is all mysteries and legends. Here's going to be some plausible theories. First is weather patterns. The Bermuda Triangle is an area where the weather can be treacherous. Most Atlantic tropical storms and hurricanes pass through this area. The Gulf Stream can cause quick, sometimes violent weather shifts. In the days before the development of modern weather forecasting, it's not hard to imagine ships being caught off guard. Water spouts that could easily destroy passing planes or ship are also not uncommon. A water spout is simply a tornado at sea that pulls water from the ocean to the surface. Some are accompanied by winds of 125 miles an hour. That's terrifying. The Gulf Stream, which travels along the western edge of the triangle, is extremely swift and turbulent. It can pose extreme navigational challenges, especially for inexperienced sailors. The Gulf Stream has been reported to move faster than 4 to 5 knots per hour. In some areas, that's 300 times faster than the Amazon River. This is more than enough to throw sailors hundreds of miles off course. If they don't compensate correctly for the current, it can also quickly erase any evidence of a disaster.
And that's my favorite part for getting rid of evidence.
The weather got rid of it. This just seems lazy to me. Like, oh yeah, shit, it's the weather. The weather can do all kinds of things. Do I think that it took away Flight 19 or sank 100 ships? No, I don't. But I will take it as a
essentially though, there is a like what would Bret say? Nature's vacuum underneath the water in this area.
I do like that comment.
Could suck away wreckage so fast and so far that it might be outside of a search radius. Or if it were discovered, it's possible people in that area might not even recognize it as something that is being searched for.
Well, and you're looking at a time period in our life right now where ocean exploration is super tech. Like they've got
True.
stuff, drones, just stuff like that. So if that's really true, don't tell me that some of these areas outside where these Gulf Streams would have taken, that somebody wouldn't have found something. I mean, these people are searching for shipwrecks constantly. Is it a plausible theory? Sure. But until you find something that's going to show you like, oh, look, it's 100 miles over here, 100 miles over there. Like, I don't know. I think we're pretty technically advanced at this point in our society to figure that out.
You would hope so.
Can't
until
find
you
proof
see...
of aliens.
Hey, I can find proof of aliens. It's called the pyramids. Check it out. Anyway,
I did quite a bit of chopping in this area of the outline. If you guys want to check that out.
Yep, I got it. So
you got it, Brett?
Oh, go ahead, Casey. If you
no,
want.
go ahead. I just wanted to give you guys time to pull up the revisions.
No, I got it. Okay. So on whirlpools, a strange phenomenon has been noticed in Bahamas, which is located at the western corner of the Bermuda Triangle, about 50 miles off the coast of Florida. There are whirlpools here with very strong tidal currents flowing in and out of them. Any ship passing over them can easily get sucked in and into the endless depths here.
Yeah, you know where they get sucked into? Atlantis, because it's a freaking doorway, boys and girls. Anyway.
Absolutely, yes. Aliens.
Doorway to Atlantis, inner hollow earth. There's a lot there going on. Okay.
We have rogue waves. According to oceanographer Simon Boxall, who we talked about earlier, rogue or freak waves are like huge walls of water that can form when stores from different directions come together on a given ocean area. Individual waves from different directions can combine to form a huge freak wave, which can be as high as 30 meters and capable of sinking large ships very quickly. Boxall mentioned that the tip of South Africa is prone to such rogue waves, and even Bermuda Triangle can have storms coming in from the Gulf of Mexico, equator, and further east of Atlantic to form a rogue wave. One such rogue wave caused the Ocean Ranger, the world's largest offshore platform that was semi-submersible, to capsize on February 15th, 1982. But that was in Canadian waters, so that's up north. So now, that's happening around the world.
I can give you guys that one. I don't know if you've seen that movie Poseidon, where the wave hits the ship.
Older 90s movie.
Yeah, and the wave hits the ship. They're on a cruise ship, and this rogue wave comes out. There's been real stories of that. Truthfully, I love cruises and I love the ocean, but that shit actually does scare the crap out of me because I know from, again, science and proof, we actually have very much proof that rogue waves do exist and are incredibly dangerous.
I mean, when I watch Wicked Tuna, like they're looking out for them. So, for topography. The many islands in the Caribbean create lots of areas of shallow water, which can be treacherous to ships. But at the same time, some of the deepest trenches in the world are found in the area of the Bermuda Triangle, including the Puerto Rico Trench we talked about earlier, which goes down to 27,500 feet below sea level. Ships or planes that sink into these deep trenches will probably never be found, just because, until the technology gets there because of that pressure.
Right.
There's also the plausible theory of treacherous underwater reefs. The Bermuda Island, also known as the Isle of Devils, forms one corner of the triangle and is located about 650 miles off the east coast of the United States. It's a well-known fact that the island is almost completely ringed by numerous shipwrecks that lie at the ocean floor near its shores. In fact, there are more than 300 ships that wrecked within 200 square miles of water of areas surrounding Bermuda. Again, highly trafficked area. So why the ocean floor here has become a ship's graveyard? The answer is known. There are numerous underwater reefs surrounding Bermuda that rise from the bottom of the sea and remain dangerously hidden under the water surface. In the earlier days, the captains of ships had to rely solely on compass and navigational charts, and sometimes on the position of the stars to navigate through the sea and reach their destinations. And unknowingly, when the ships passed over such hidden reefs, often the hulls of the ships were torn apart from hitting these reefs, sinking them quickly.
Again, completely feasible option. Yeah.
I'm going to kind of skip this one about the Gulf Stream because we've already mentioned it a couple times.
Right.
The kind of the ocean's vacuum, high-speed vacuum. Yeah. We also have human error. As we've seen, many of the Bermuda Triangle disappearances can be attributed to good old human error. People misreading a compass, making poor navigational decisions, panicking, misunderstanding their location. It's worth noting that as navigational equipment has improved, there have been fewer instances of mysterious disappearance in the waters of the Atlantic. So just like the guy leaving the autopilot on the ship, that actually is better than them being in control.
Yeah, don't try to take over. And I can see that too, because I am a firm believer in the fact that there are a lot of, I'll put it nicely, less intelligent people out there than should be.
That was so nice.
I'm trying here to be a little nice.
I mean,
all right.
Warning labels.
All right. So, I mean, we've seen some plausible things. We've seen some conspiracies. We've talked about some great facts. Do you still have Kush's theory on your notes? Because
I do.
I think I have
Yes.
the.
Do you want to cover this?
Okay. Sure. I'll check that. So we've got Kush's theory. I believe I'm pronouncing his name Couché's. Let's do Couché. It sounds very
We can
French.
just nutshell this too. We don't have to read
Oh,
the whole
okay.
thing. Like, basically,
right.
his whole theory is that there is no theory, that there is nothing unusual about the Bermuda Triangle. That pretty much
Right.
sums it all up.
Right. And statistically, we've gone over that. There are even a lot of memes out there. Brett hasn't explained a meme not yet today. So
I was waiting.
there's a lot of memes out there that show the same thing, that are basically saying, statistically, the Bermuda Triangle is nothing special. It is just a lot of myths and urban legends. But there are people like myself who are firm believers in things like Atlantis and aliens that have a lot to do with it. Obviously, Brett and Clouds are on a different page than I am tonight, which is a little rare. Usually they're not quite on the same page with each other. Once again, 2 episodes in a row, lots of agreeing. But podcasters out there in the world, now that you've heard what we have to say, go out and check it out. Like I said, read a book, look at stuff, check things out, do some research for yourself, and make a decision on your own. I believe that there's a lot more to it, so others might not. So,
All right, so what are our final thoughts here? You still on the alien bandwagon?
I'm going to go with aliens. I'm going to go with Atlantis as an alien kind of depot, if you will, maybe sanken by them at certain points. I'm going to go with the fact that, was it manganese ore could easily be some sort of fuel supply, especially if you're looking at starship concepts and the ability to go beyond gravity. I'm sorry. I love the facts. I am a facts guy. But in this case, no. Bermuda Triangle, some crazy shit. It's unexplained. And I think there's a lot more to do with stuff like aliens than we want to believe.
So I believe this is something that we covered on the first time that we tried to record, but didn't get to this time. But there's also a theory that there are pockets of methane gas trapped beneath the seabed in this area. And one of the theories for the disappearance of the USS Cyclops was that a bubble of methane gas burst forth from the ocean, came up underneath the ship, and ignited the manganese ore, which would have caused a massive explosion, which pretty much would have instantaneously sunk the ship and potentially just turned any debris into sawdust. Potentially. There's no proof of that, but it's a working theory because there have been...
It's all theories.
Well, there is proof that methane gas bubbles are released in this portion of the Atlantic, but not necessarily that was the cause of the Cyclops' disappearance. I just know that's something that has been passed around as possible because it would have been such a quick explosion, considering the cargo. I don't know if we got into that much this time, but
so on your conclusion, what are your thoughts, Clouds? What do you got here? Are you on science
that aliens
and
sunk
Earth?
Atlantis. No, just kidding.
You are just mocking me.
Yeah, correct. I have a hard time attributing the devious workings of Mother Nature to alien interference. Not to say that I'm not open to the possibility that aliens exist. I just feel that oftentimes they are given way too much credit. And I guess for a thought exercise, let's say aliens are sucking up ships and aircraft in this section of the ocean. Why?
Atlantis.
Yeah, it could be beyond us comprehending why.
We're just not meant to understand.
Well,
we don't know. We are monkeys on a planet.
An ant on an anthill is not going to comprehend a satellite in space. Or
yeah,
Earth.
But the ant on an anthill can go to science school and figure it out. Okay?
You say so.
Struggles. Brett, I know you got some final thoughts on this. What are you thinking?
I'm going to say we can't prove it's not aliens. So I'll say that first. Next, where I would lean on this is that humans are very sensitive to energy and earth energies. And I would say like the magnetism, they say that no magnetic anomalies are found here, but a lot of these stories we're reading about are going with that fog theory. Like a lot of this points the other way. So you have like the government telling you, oh, there's nothing going on here, but we have a bunch of stories saying, hey, something magnetic's kind of going on here. So,
well, let me just say this.
I like that.
Humans are nothing if not wholly committed to their mistakes, right? And we have this book that was released by this author, Berlowitz, that pretty much thrust the Bermuda Triangle into this conspiracy limelight where he was making all sorts of claims. And I do recommend that people do some research into Cush's theory, in which he disproves many of the claims made in that book, such as certain shipwrecks and disappearances that were attributed to the Bermuda Triangle weren't actually anywhere near the Bermuda Triangle. But
or
the
didn't
book
happen.
was out there.
Right.
And people latched onto it and took it as truth. And it's been very, very, very difficult for people to let go of the phenomena and the, you know, kind of paparazzi thing happening around the Bermuda Triangle. It's the same way, like, if something, you know, new science or information were to come out tomorrow and say the Titanic never sank. But we've been told for years, 110 years now, that the Titanic did sink. How hard is it going to be for us as a society to unlearn that information? Same thing here. It's almost impossible to unlearn something that's been so deeply embedded in our consciousness to the point where people who aren't conspiracy theorists or aren't scientists, they know what the Bermuda Triangle is. It's ingrained in us to believe that this is a weird place where weird shit happens and people disappear. Whether it's true or not, even if we come out tomorrow and say, hey, we have an explanation, how long will it actually take people to accept that, as opposed to what we've been told our whole lives?
It's when you get a child for the first time having to like accept, what do you mean there's no Santa Claus?
No,
you know,
exactly
like,
that. Exactly.
There's always a Santa Claus. So I got my toys.
Learned behavior, basically, is where you're going with that. It's learned behavior.
Deeply embedded, and it's really hard for us to admit that we made mistakes as a culture, as a society. Look at the way American history is presented versus what really happened. Like, how long do you think it takes people to admit their mistakes and revise things? Yes, Brett.
I'll take that a step further. I'll even call out our education system, because they've done it the same way, or people have built their careers on something being a certain way. It's not in their best interest to necessarily disprove themselves or say something changed, because then they lose their credibility or what even got them to their position.
Right.
You know, so I'd even say that's even gone to the education system.
That's what I meant when I said talk about how we teach history. It's like the kids, you know, like how we really
even more than
history,
just broad, like the whole thing.
No, I agree. And
broad
science
education,
is a changing observation of known facts, and as we know more facts, we're going to observe new things, and science is going to change. It happens.
We can hope. We can hope that the science has changed. In my personal opinion, I think that we're getting very close to the movie Idiocracy not being a joke.
Oh yeah,
but being more of a reality. And there's a lot of other people that feel the same way. People are losing interest in being educated, and I think thanks to things like social media, as well as just plain I don't give a shit. People really they're not getting into those facts. When I was in high school, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. When I was in high school, it was a struggle, but people still were educated. When my dad was in high school, the books were solid and people learned. We talked this earlier. In the 50s and 60s, people read, they paid attention, but they got facts and they were onto it. I think we are slowly growing into a society where the education of things isn't necessarily as important as, say, the random knowledge that someone spouts off. Maybe people don't read. They just, we all know that people use Facebook as a news source. The same with Twitter. That shit is not real, boys and girls. People make that shit up all the time. Read a book, get out there, see what's going on. So I can definitely agree with you guys on those things.
Well, Casey, in your law enforcement career, have you ever had a moment where you had to go to your supervisor and let them know, like, no, sergeant, lieutenant, whoever, I'm not sure though, your chain of command, but you go to your next one up, like, no, this is how it goes, or this is what happened in the report, or this is what happened. And they're like, no, it didn't happen that way, or just dismiss it, or we'll leave that part out, you know, and I'm not going to hold you to say anything. Your face.
I was like, you may want to be careful on answering that when you don't want to incriminate yourself.
I'm painting a picture here.
Go to work.
Okay,
I still
I'm painting
have
a
to
picture
maintain
here.
my license.
And again, Casey hasn't told me anything. This is me speculating, but let me say, like, you found like a new development, or like, hey, I forgot to include this in my report. Can we add this before it fully gets submitted, or how you guys do your thing? And they just tell you to dismiss or let go. I'm saying that new science can be found or lead a different direction, but it goes against the establishment or what's making money. And it's like, hey, we're going to leave that part out for now. You know,
let me take a step deeper on that, Brett, and let's just use Air Force pilots as a single representation. An Air Force pilot sees something that may not be explainable. How often do they report that? Because what could happen if they did? I mean, there's a lot of shit that can go down on that. You can literally take years and years of training to be an amazing fighter pilot. And one comment of something like that they see, it can be buried. Their careers can be ruined.
Lose
yes,
I'm
talking about
discharge,
you out there. Yeah. And when you're afraid of things like that, I think, again, it can, I'm totally on the same page.
So
with
if
Do not
you Air
incriminate
Force
yourself, by the
pilots
way.
are listening and you want to come on our show and tell us your secret story that you couldn't tell your supervisors, we'll black out your face and give you the
And
deep
we'll say
throat
you're not an
voice.
Air Force pilot.
Holy crap,
you're
I would
definitely-
absolutely love that.
Oh, did you say
Please.
deep throat voice, extra gargle?
Is that where we had to go with that?
She said it, not me. I repeated.
Well, I think that we have definitely come to the conclusion that we do have some very strong opinions on the Bermuda Triangle. It is very well known. People know what's going on out there. So once again, podcasters, go read a book. Check it out. Make your own decisions in life without listening to Facebook, Twitter, and
Allow me to
social
summarize what Aaron is saying. Back in my day, kids would read books
Oh,
instead
Jesus
of being
Christ.
all this
Oh.
fuck-faced and all that shit. Yeah, you young
It's-
whippersnappers,
okay.
get off my lawn.
It is hard for me to listen to myself say when I was in, because I used to make fun of people who do that.
I'm going to reel this back because you told me that this was the first time we record this episode, which we had
Yes.
technical issues.
Yes, we want to do this.
I'm going to give a puff pass scenario is what I'm going to call it. And
Yes.
And you were talking about getting random knowledge from people. Imagine that you're puff passing and you have to pick somebody that's dead, that's famous. You know, like, let's say you bring him back to life. Give me one musician, past or present, you know, live or
Are
dead.
you sure
And
we
then give
didn't
me
do this on a different episode?
and give me one celebrity.
No,
And it's okay if it changes. At
I'm
least Aaron
telling
doesn't remember
you, it was on the first time we tried to film this. It was in the intro part of it because we wanted to make. Well, maybe it was true crime. Did we do it on true crime?
I think it was on True Crime because remember
Okay.
I said who I'd smoke with and the crimes we commit on
Well,
Oh, that's right. You said Hitler. That's right.
Yes. So we could
That
murder
is true.
him. And
But
Ice Cube
I still love
and Eminem were going to help me kill Hitler, guys,
That's
just
right.
for context.
That's right. But I still love the question because Brett is varying it up with this whole dead
So
musician
who
thing.
are we killing?
So what is
who are we
it?
smoking
It's
with
a
now?
it's a dead celebrity.
or dead celebrity or musician or famous person, historical figure. I mean,
Dead
somebody
famous.
dead that somebody will know for the most part. Musician that you'd like to just chill with and talk with, and then a celebrity, and that could be anybody that's just in the public eye. Could just be whoever, an Instagram model, a tattoo artist.
All right. All right.
Whatever.
Can I just pick one person and then we smoke 4 blunts together?
If that's how you want to
Sure.
do it,
Yeah,
I'm not.
yeah, that's okay with that.
All right, you guys go first while I think about this.
Well, Brett, you want to go first? It is your question. Drop it on us.
For a dead person, I'm still probably going to go Juice WRLD. I think that was my answer the first
That's
time.
right. Juice WRLD.
For musician, and this is kind of like double dipping, but I think it'd be fun to smoke with Jack Black.
Oh,
And then,
love that guy. Tenacious
and
D.
then for celebrity, I would get the stand comedian Daniel Tosh of Tosh.0. So I think Daniel Tosh, Jack Black, and Juice WRLD would be a pretty fun puff pass group.
Well, 2 of those are live out there. So Jack Black, Daniel Tosh. If you smoke weed, and I'm pretty sure Jack Black does. hit Brett up.
I bet he does.
All right, so mine, I'm going to go with dead famous would probably be a Greek philosopher of some kind, Aristotle, Socrates. Hopefully they would be able to translate English in that sort of concept. I think that, especially
At least
like
get the Latin.
Socrates. Yeah, Socrates would probably be the shit, if I'm my personal opinion. A musician, I'm going to say Lenny Kravitz, because that guy is so cool that I think he could bottle it and sell it to me, and I would probably pay for it. Another one of those things I'd buy that makes me an idiot. And of course, the celebrity, Robert Downey Jr. I believe that was the first one I said. Robert Downey Jr., if you're out there, buddy, I just want to meet you, man. I want to sit down. I know you don't do drugs anymore, but I want to sit down and just chat with you about Iron Man and Marvel and your cool ass life.
I'm sure he's never tired of talking about that.
Oh, probably not. He only made a fortune on it.
You're such an asshole, Casey.
I know. Okay,
All right,
allow me
Clouds.
to un-asshole myself.
All right,
Because I'm
Clouds.
going to sit down and smoke with Brendan Fraser,
Oh,
who deserves all
What
the
a
best
great
things in life.
call. Have you guys seen Doom Patrol?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
not
yes.
yet.
But I
Oh.
just feel very protective of this man I've never met. And I want him to succeed and have a perfect, peaceful, lovely life. And I will smoke 1 blunt, and Brendan Fraser can have 3 blunts. And we will peacefully,
Nice.
quietly sit there together and smoke a blunt while I tell him that I love him to death. And I would die for
So,
him.
okay.
Are you going to check out his new movie,
You know what?
that
I
The
will.
Whale?
Yeah. I will.
I
I
totally
have
want to see
throw-
it as well.
That was a beautiful tribute to
See, you think I'm not
Brendan
nice?
Fraser. So
Yeah.
no, and so I'm going to let you double
Encino
down
Man.
on niceness. I'm going to let you double down on niceness
Oh, no.
and tell me the location where you would smoke.
Oh, Does he like beaches?
So it's gonna be what he likes.
Yes. I'm telling you, I want to keep him as a
Listen.
pet. Okay, I want him to just be spoiled and like babied for the rest of his life. That's how I feel about Brendan Fraser.
Daytime,
Love it.
cloud gazing, or nighttime, stargazing.
Nighttime on the beach while Kygo plays and there's little lights overhead. We each have a little martini.
Oh my god!
I'm not kidding.
I think we're getting little too deep into the Brendan Fraser thing, but good for you.
Martini, man, you just going straight into it, aren't you?
Well, he likes martinis. I just want him to have
candlelights and a chicken out there.
I don't know about the chicken. I'd try to eat it. I need my protein.
Well, chicken dinner. There you go.
Chicken dinner, yes. But I just want him to relax and have a great time and just not worry about the world for a while. That's what I want for Brendan Fraser. That's it.
I dig that because I like that guy. I didn't like
him.
how Hollywood kind of shit on him there for a while, and I'm so looking forward to seeing his new movie, The Whale.
Comeback.
I think it's going to be great. Yeah, I got to go with you on that one. So, very cool.
Aaron,
the nicest I'm going to be in the history of the show, and it's to Brendan fucking Fraser.
Welcome to being the new host.
Yeah, let me just, first of all, before we close this out, everybody, for those of you out there, if you missed the beginning, they have offered me the point to be part of this as a permanent resident here at No Fly Zone, and I am ecstatic. I can't thank you both enough. I can't wait to be a permanent part of this amazing and wonderful show.
And Aaron, I'm glad you made the right decision. I will call off the hit squad outside your work right now in case you said no.
Wonderful.
Well,
wonderful.
She's actually had the ad and Soldier of Fortune for a week now. So,
hopefully it was a high price to pay to take this life. That's for sure.
No, they pay us. So,
nice.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. On that note.
All right, so let me close the show out. First of all, boys and girls, don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube, to our Spotify, other pages that we've done. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the merch store. Save the Greyhounds are always a good thing to go. And hopefully the headbands will show up soon because, Bret, you got to get rid of the white one. You got to get a good headband on there. You have great headbands. Like the white one, it's just too flush on your skin there, big dog.
I'll switch it up. But I'm going to caveat on this is that if maybe we're not your cup of tea, but we're like somebody you know's cup of tea.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm like a triple espresso with whiskey in it.
And that's not everybody's thing.
That's a subtle comment. So just, again, don't forget to like and subscribe. Fans, we want to thank you out there. I got a couple specific, if you don't mind me name dropping. He's going to love it. Norm, you're my biggest fan, big dog. Norm, he works at my work. You are my biggest fan, and I appreciate the fact that you have confidence in me. You have helped me as well as you guys to really
put forth my best effort.
So,
I'm just kidding. We love you.
Norm,
I don't know you.
He's getting excited now.
All right. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for stopping by the No Fly Zone. We appreciate your fan base. We love what you have. Stay tuned for wonderful new episodes, Titanic, hopefully Bigfoot, and God knows what other great and wonderful things come up with.
Crystal Skulls.
If you have anything you want to do, please stop by our website at noflyzonepc.com and throw a comment on there and let us know what you might be interested in. So once again, everybody, thank you very much and have a great one.
Bye.